College game day is going to the top 25 matchup at the Iron Bowl. Historic game, let's preview it. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. You are a good sport. This is College Football Media, and on this channel we talk college football teams, trends, and traditions, all the way to logos, history, and predictions. If that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing for in-depth college football content. We're going to talk about the Iron Bowl and a couple other games that will be big this weekend. But let's start with the Iron Bowl. Auburn has won 2 out of the last 3 games in this matchup. That might be a little surprising, but it's very true. They have, and so you can never count out Auburn, and that's the first thing that I'll say. Now, big news came out, and Coach Saban for Alabama tested positive for COVID and is not going to be there to coach this game. It was not a false test like he had one previously in the season. He has mild symptoms, so he's not going to be able to coach this game. I don't think it changes too much, but I did see, I think Brandon Marcello said that South Carolina better keep their eyeballs on this game because it is the interview for Steve Sarkisian. That's an interesting way to look at it, but probably not too terribly wrong either. I think that's a fair assessment. Steve Sarkisian took over the previous time for the remainder of that week when Saban did have the false positive, and so yet again he should take all head coaching duties for this week and this game. Alabama is a strong favorite, and that's probably not surprising to any of us. But keep in mind, this is the best team that Alabama will play against since the Georgia game. And frankly, that Georgia game in the second half, everybody saw Georgia just didn't have the quarterback to be able to keep up. So, with that being said, a very talented roster at Georgia, this is the best team that they've played since. So let's look at it from this angle. Say it's Sunday or Saturday night, and you know for a fact Auburn wins this game. How do they win? So with that question being asked, how does Auburn win? What does the game look like from their perspective if they're going to win this game? How does it happen? The best example I can think of is to take a card out of LSU's game plan. Now bear with me. LSU, I'm not talking about of course they haven't played Alabama, but LSU all season has had problems defensively. Their defensive coordinator is not doing very hot. And so they've had struggles the whole time, the whole season on defense. Last week in their game, I believe against Arkansas, what did they do? They controlled the ball. They had time possession. They possessed the ball for so much of the game that the opposing team, Arkansas in this case, didn't have the ball to be able to score. Because LSU had the ball the whole time, or for a majority of the time, their defense couldn't be hurt. They still had a bad defense, sure, but if they're not on the field, how can they hurt your team? So, with that mindset, what if Auburn can do the same thing? Not inherently because their defense is bad, but because Alabama's offense is so good. How do you limit Alabama's offense? Keep the ball out of their hands. If Auburn possesses the ball for the majority or the entire game, then how can Alabama score? First, what you need to make sure you do is not turn the ball over. This game could very well be dictated by turnovers if they get out of hand. So Auburn, first off, needs to make sure they possess the ball and not give it to Alabama for free points. If they can do that, run the ball, control the clock, and try to get this game into the fourth quarter. If you can get the game into the fourth quarter, Auburn usually has a good shot, especially in a rivalry game. So if Auburn can keep the ball away from Mac Jones and Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Steve Sarkisian, if they keep it away from that offense, and you're able to score, have long possessive drives, and put 7 points up on the board after holding the ball for 9, 10, 7, 6 minutes, of the ball game, I think you're in a pretty good shot. And Gus Malzahn always has just a little something up his sleeve. But my prediction for this game is for the favorite to win. I'll pick Alabama to win this game. I don't expect that perfect a game from Auburn, even though it's possible. That's not exactly how I think it's going to go. So I'll take Alabama to win the game. And let's talk about some other games this weekend. On Friday, we have Iowa State and Texas. That is a top 25 matchup. They're both ranked. I don't know how many people's eyeballs will be on this game. I'll take Texas. They're the favorites. They've sneakily won 3 games after that, following that Oklahoma game. But the Cyclones, they're a fun team to watch. You'd like to see them have some success. And if Tom Herman's hot seat is going to continue, then Texas needs to lose. So not sure how things are going to go. If they continue to win, does he keep his job? That's really the focus. And if Iowa State wins, can they get to a Big 12 championship game and actually compete for it? That would be a lot of fun to see as well. That game is on Friday. Another game on that same Friday is Notre Dame and North Carolina. So, of course, the number 2 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish looking to win their way through the ACC, their only year in a conference to win the conference. Who knows how all that is actually going to go and turn out in the end. But North Carolina, they have a pretty good team, but you're not exactly sure where they're at. They're kind of up and down. So after this game, you expect to know really how good North Carolina is and how they can match up against the best. Notre Dame is sneakily good this year. Not inherently sneakily, because they beat Clemson. They've won games. They're ranked number 2 in the country. So people know about Notre Dame. But over a 5-year expectations, a lot of fans generally think that they're overrated. This year does feel a little bit different. I think the best comparison that we have for Notre Dame is that 2017 Georgia team, who, if you remember, won the SEC, played Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl, beat a Baker Mayfield-led Oklahoma Sooners, high-powered offense, and Georgia won that game. They had athletes. Jake Fromm played the game of his life during those 2 games in the playoff as a freshman. Ian Book, you might could draw some similarities, see a little bit between the two of Fromm and Ian Book. So with that being said, I think that's the best comparison that I have off the top of my head for Notre Dame. But they do have a legitimate shot at really making some noise and maybe winning a game or 2 in the playoff. Of course, if you win 2 games, you know what that means. So it's been a long time for Notre Dame, by the way. But with all that being said, I expect Notre Dame to win this game. And really, at the end of the day, what will matter is how they play against Clemson the second time. Everybody assumes that that's what's going to happen in the ACC championship game. Saturday, a couple other fun games. You have the Hot Seat Bowl, Penn State and Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, James Franklin. It's sad that that's funny. Frankly, that's what this season has come to. It is a COVID year. It's a pandemic year, whatever that means. Things don't look good for either one of these teams this season. But I will say there could be a comparison. Don't know how accurate, but it could be similar to Notre Dame and Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly had a 4-8 year after he went to a national championship game in 2012 and lost to Alabama. After that, there was a 4-8 season in there. That's a down year. That's a terrible year for Notre Dame. But he brought him back up. Can that happen with either Michigan or Penn State? It's possible. I would be more likely to expect a turnaround from Penn State like over the next 5 years. It could happen with Michigan as well. Both of these coaches still have a very solid chance to keep their job next year, because coming into this year, the hot seat was non-existent for James Franklin and still kind of a little cool for Jim Harbaugh. So this game will be big for whichever team wins this game. Penn State might need it a little bit more just because they're 0-5 and Michigan has won 2 games. So that's kind of the oddball powerhouse blue blood teams that are having a terrible year in the Hot Seat Bowl this weekend. The last game that will be a lot of fun, or a little interesting to say the least, will be the Egg Bowl. If you can remember last year, the great wide receiver at Ole Miss, Moore, he did a pose in the Egg Bowl, in the end zone. That one pose got both coaches fired. If it wasn't for that one pose, then the coaching turnover from last season to this season in the state of Mississippi might not have been as drastic. So, very interesting. Of course, now we have Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin in the same state, two of the best press conference coaches that exist. Very excited to watch the first matchup between these two. Mississippi State hasn't looked great. We all know that following week 1, but they may have found something last week against Georgia. Can they sustain it? That's what we want to watch, and the pageantry, the hate between these two schools is what will make this game fun. And just seeing the coaches with Kiffin and Leach opposite each other on the sideline. I'll pick Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin to win this game. I think the Rebels are the more complete team, so I'll take them to win. But that's my predictions for this week. Let me know any of your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and consider subscribing for in-depth college football content. Check me out on social media. My DMs are open on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to have a conversation with me. I'm willing and I would have a lot of fun with that. So, again, thank you so much for watching this video until the end. Until next time, be goody now.